Well, hi everyone. Welcome to today's presentation on land cover change and the Dust Bowl drought in the U.S. Great Plains. My name is Caitlin, and I'm a AmeriCorps member serving with Conservation Nebraska's Common Ground program. Conservation Nebraska's mission is to protect our state's natural legacy by educating the public, supporting communities, and increasing civic engagement, which we accomplish through locally led education efforts and community engagement projects to address local conservation concerns like this event today. Before the presentation, there's a couple housekeeping things to go over. For those of you online, your cameras will remain off and will be muted for the presentation. If you have any questions, please type them into the chat or the Q&A section, and we'll answer those at some point during or after the presentation. And for those of you in person, you can raise your hands and we'll try to answer those questions. This presentation will be recorded and will be uploaded to Conservation Nebraska's YouTube page within the next couple of weeks. So if you miss any parts of today's presentation or would like to revisit anything or share it with someone else, you'll be able to find it there. And then following the presentation, we'll have a very brief survey for both online and in person. It's only going to take a couple minutes, but it's really helpful for us to keep putting on these kinds of events. And then if anyone in attendance is interested in speaking with a Conservation Nebraska member regarding conservation issues in Nebraska, or to find out more about what we do, you can contact us at info@neconserve.org, and I'll put that in the chat. And then I would just like to introduce Dr. Steve Hu from UNL, who's going to speak to us about land cover change and the Dust Bowl drought in the U.S. Great Plains. And Dr. Hu earned his PhD in atmospheric science at Colorado State University in 1992 and worked as a research assistant professor at the University of Missouri-Columbia from 1995 to 99, and served as the director of Missouri Climate Center and the Missouri State Climatologist. He came to the School of Natural Resources at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln in 1999, and he earned his professorship at UNL in 2009. He also served as an editor of the Journal of Applied Meteorology and Climatology from 2002 to 2022, and has been the editor-in-chief of JAMC since 2023. So with that, we will welcome Dr. Hu.
Can you hear me well? Good. Well, I'd like to thank Samantha, Caitlin, and Nebraska Conservation for giving me this opportunity to share my work on this particular subject of land cover change in the enhancement and also prolonging of the severe multi-year drought in the 1930s. So we call that, that has a name of special name of Dust Bowl. And this work has been, this work was done a while ago. So it's a collaboration with my colleagues, Abraham and Matthew, at the Department of Earth and Atmospheric Sciences of UNL. And this work was supported by the National Science Foundation. And this subject of Dust Bowl drought has been a very popular subject because it has been very severely affected life and also the society, as I will show you later, this country. And the other reason for studying this is to find a way to somehow predict or see the precursor of such severe droughts in order to predict them so that communities and societies can develop strategies to mitigate impact or consequences of such drought in the future. So then let's see how this drought, why this drought is so, I'm sure you all probably have heard or have, I guess nobody in the audience was born in those years, 1930s. So we only get the information from some photographs or some articles, books. So I have some pictures to show you how the drought looked like in 1930s, mid-30s. Well, first of all, that drought is coined the name of coined the Dust Bowl drought because it's a multi-year warm season from 1933 to 1938. Drought with characterized with severe massive dust storms like this. So this particular photograph was taken on April 14th, 1935 at Tehran, Oklahoma. I don't know the microphone is to you mind if I take off the microphone? It's, I think it's okay. I think it's not that. So I can speak louder rather than have to hold my voice back. Okay, this is a picture of Tyrone, Oklahoma on that particular day. You can see the dust wall, the dust storm is so severe. It's just like a wall of dust coming to these group on this place. People were shocked and was just helpless watching being buried in this storm. And then it's not only Oklahoma, it's across the entire Great Plains. This is in Kansas, Rolla, Kansas, this a month later, May 6th, in the year of 35, the same year, you can see the wall of dust, pit wall coming to this town, the small village. This is more like a township there. And after those dust storms, people people just seeing this buried equipment or their properties and destroyed buildings and sheds, all those things. So this is in Dallas, South Dakota, 1936. And as a consequence of these repeated severe dust storms, people lost everything. The environment was devastated, and the economy there was nothing can grow there, can be grown. So a lot of people left their homes and went migrate westward. That migration has there are many books describe that migration, and also used many families, prominent families, who migrated to California, primarily to California, and those families, some members of the families, eventually, some of them became prominent politicians. So they are participating in the society and in the policy or this law, those things really have affected the course of this nation. California is a big state, has big political weight. So after this particular event, after the 1930s, a lot of many prominent politicians in the West, along the West Coast, really played some very important roles in shaping this country's course in the last 80 years or so. So this has some not only the economical, environmental impact consequences to people, but also has a very important, profound political influences on this country's history, I guess. So then, what may be the costs of this dust storm, or this continuous? That's the key. It's continuous and also very strong, very severe dust storms in that particular decade. Well, it's 5 years from 33 through 38. As I said earlier, many studies have been trying to figure out the causes or unravel the causes for such unusual. It's from the retrospective, that still is a very unusual event because after 1930s, we had a 1950, mid 1950s with similar sort of multi-year drought, but not as severe as these storms. And after that, after 1950s, we haven't had any drought at that near that severity. So whether is such event will repeat itself, that's a concern. And that is the question people try to answer, try to understand what had happened in the 1930s and caused such a severe event. It's not just one event. Is an episode. Is a sequence of events every year, every warm season, for the purpose to make predictions. So they can, if we know how this thing developed back then, we can monitor the conditions which may favor such event. So then if that's the case, then we can predict the likelihood for such thing to be developed in the future, next year or next year or next summer or next summer, so that people can, communities can be prepared and to find ways to deal with that, or to minimize the impact of such events. So then, over the years, there were many studies, as I said, many studies have tried to do this, to answer that question. Existing theories can be grouped into mainly three categories. Like first is in the early time, we were thinking, people were thinking that such kind of prolonged event in the atmospheric process, in the atmosphere, would have to be supported by some oceanic processes. We know that the water has bigger or larger heat capacity. So if water is warmer, the ocean is warmer. Earth is covered 71% by ocean. So if ocean is warmer, then that is a large amount of heat stored there. That heat will have to be released somehow. And then that amount of heat released can be easily change the atmospheric circulation status and cause something to be abnormal, to be something different from usual condition at here and there at different places. So that's when you hear El Nino, you hear La Nina. Those are the examples of how oceanic processes. Those are El Nino, La Nina. Those are shown by sea surface temperature anomalies at certain places along the equatorial Pacific. And if you hear a lot of those prediction, like our prediction in central U.S., prediction in Nebraska, the winter temperature, precipitation, or even, you probably have heard something like that, based on the SST anomalies associated with El Nino or La Nina. We're in a La Nina year, or so that people will say La Nina year usually correspond to more or less winter precipitation in central U.S. or some other anomalies along the west coast. So that's the foundation for this theory. That is, the SST anomalies can play a very important role to influence the atmospheric circulation, because the heat release from the ocean is a slow process. So that slow process can extend the anomaly in the atmosphere. And then if that SST anomaly is preferring to have the dry conditions in central US, then that process will last for multiple years. Like El Nino is a 2-year cycle. I mean, not 2-year cycle, it's a 2-year period, about 4 years, 9-year cycle. So those 2 years, if that relationship holds, those 2 years with SST anomaly should to be above average, then the corresponding sort of changes in circulation, in precipitation at certain places, they call teleconnection, places far away from the ocean, will be in that state for 2 years. So that's one of the possible cause for such kind of extended abnormal conditions in precipitation. So that's one of the series people examined for many years, and eventually some found that in those 10 years, 10 years, 30s, the decade of 30s. The SST anomalies, sea surface temperature anomaly along the equatorial Pacific didn't have very strong signs. Is anomaly the positive or negative, but the positive will be this little, negative will be this little. There is no big sign of like large deviation from the average, enough to cause some substantial persistent anomaly of circulation and resulting in the dry or drought in certain places. So that finding has really sort of weakened that scientific group of theory, saying, okay, SST anomaly in the equatorial Pacific associated with the La Nina, El Nino probably wasn't a very important contributor to this Dust Bowl drought, Dust Bowl series. So then there are other people, like I'm one of those. We are one of those in this group of people proposing that the North Atlantic Ocean's SST, sea surface temperature, actually plays more pronounced role than more important role than the SST in the equatorial Pacific for the precipitation anomalies in the central US. So there are many of these kind of teleconnection patterns. They are all sort of influence. They all influence variations, temperature, and precipitation at certain places. The influences are different based on the circulation configuration caused by that the SST anomaly. Then, to make this long story short, then the North Atlantic SST anomaly effect on the Dust Bowl drought is not very strong, cannot be considered as a strong cause, because at the time of those Dust Bowl years, the SST anomaly in the North Atlantic Ocean was in the transition from one phase to the other. See, North Atlantic SST variation has this very pronounced multi-decadal variation, like 30, 40 years. The North Atlantic SST, especially on the western side of the basin, Atlantic basin, is above average of 100 years average, 100 years SST. And the next 30, 40 years, it'll be below average. So that's called North Atlantic oscillation. And that oscillation has a statistically significant connection with summer season precipitation anomalies in the central US. So there are people using that relationship to predict the summer season precipitation anomaly in the central US, but you need to have, well, the strongest relationship between these two anomalies variations is in the cold phase of the Atlantic SST anomaly, or in that North Atlantic oscillation. When the SST in the North Atlantic Ocean has the negative anomaly, colder SST, colder sea surface temperature than average, those are the years when central US respond very favorably to that anomaly with more precipitation. So the colder SST in the North Atlantic Ocean would correspond to more precipitation, summer precipitation in the central US. That is the most significant connection between these two variations. But in the 30s, the SST over the North Atlantic is a warm phase, or hasn't been established, just the transitioning from the cold phase to warm phase. So that influence is not going to be strong enough to explain this very massive, frequent dust bowls in those in the 30s, in the years of the 30s. So that theory is sort of put aside. Then, well, there are many studies. Finally, this Horn and his group, I think at NCAR, Colorado there, they found that well, there is nothing else we can think of. So his group tested many different combinations and models, atmospheric models, and found that although none of those SST scenarios really worked to explain this drought, but they found that the local and regional land and soil interactions in their models, experiments, seems to play some role in triggering or in not triggering because well in enhancing the drought in the 30s. So that's a new idea saying, okay, this kind of prolonged drought, that's quite a different perspective from a traditional view, because we always think, oh, such kind of massive event, extreme events, extreme event would require this strong backup from like SSTs, the big heat anomaly. But then this thing, no, you don't need that big backup there. You just we just need some. Well, the model results suggest that you just have some land use change. You change your land cover condition, you can change the surface energy and water balance, and that balance difference will be enough to cause the to sustain this drought and enhance that. So that's the idea. But then how? But they didn't explain what is the cost for that interaction to cause to make this drought to such severity. So that's what we start working on this problem. So we're considering that well, the focus here is how the land use change is a human activity. Human interaction with human modification of the environment may have destroyed their own life in this particular case. Our hypothesis is that during the well, in the 30s, the land use land condition, land cover condition was very different from was changed so different from it was before the west expansion, right? West expansion from 1830 to 1880 or something like that. So when people migrate westward to find land to start have their homestead and then farming the land, all those things, over decades of exploration, farming, and the land in the in the southern Great Plains, first in the southern Great Plains, then further north. So in the Great Plains had changed to be totally different from it was in the pre-settlement, before in the pre-settlement time. And here I have a picture showing this. This is like a Nebraska's grassland. This is like this is, people say, well, we have some at school, we have some people doing grassland studies and all those forests. This is they consider this as a very, very similar condition in the pre-settlement. It's like just tall grass, and just like this. But after many years of cultivation and agricultural production, then the grass disappeared, removed, and then replaced by the cropland. This is a picture. This is a photograph taken from the Fred family. Well, yeah, Johnson, Nebraska in early 1930s. You see, the grass was gone, just replaced by this cropland. This farmer was plowing his field and get ready to seed and grow the crop that year. And the same here. This is also in Nebraska in 1933. The previous was in 1930 or 30s, because the time is not actually there. So 33, you can see this is harvesting the crop, and you don't see grass anymore. You see the cropland. Well, the native grass, has very different root systems from the cropland, from the crops. The native grass in this drought-prone region, native grass developed with very deep rooting zones, like deep to 5 meters under the surface, in order to absorb, to take moisture from deep soil, will accumulate during the winter season, during the winter cold season, and sustain their growth, and covers the point is cover the land surface, so that moisture can be preserved. Certain moisture can be preserved there, not completely lost, like in the crop in the dryland crop situation. Crops have very shallow root zone. If you pull out the corn in the in the tasseling time or even later time, harvest time, you will find that the corn's root only this deep, just spread like this, and then sucking moisture and nutrients to grow. So when you harvest that, you have nothing to cover on the land. The point is, the most important is that this communication of water between deep soil and the shallow and the surface, shallow soil and the surface, is terminated by this transition from native grass to cropland. So the surface is constantly dry, is all time dry, and that changes the energy and water budget at the surface. And we will show that that change is strong enough, can cause the local and regional circulation change, so that the circulation change is enough to cause this to sustain a dry condition for quite some time. So that's the hypothesis we have. So next, we're going to test this hypothesis. Well, before that, I'm going to show you how the land. Well, I have to show you how the land. You have to be convinced. You say, I don't believe how much land has been changed by this agricultural production. Well, this figure shows the change of the land cover conditions in the. See, this is this pre-settlement. It's 1880s land cover condition, and this is the 1930s condition, and this is the current, and I think is the 2015, well, not 2015, 2011, 2 years before this publication year. So you see, during in the pre-settlement time, before the agricultural sort of production got into this very big scale, the central or the most of the Great Plains is in this color. That is number 5 color, which is grassland. So most of the plains was grassland covered, very nice. It's a grassland. Then you have this savanna and some forest down the Missouri, the Ozarks, and further Arkansas. And then you see what happens during the 30s. All changed to be this color. What is that color? That color is number 2. Is dryland cropland, and pasture. Pasture is like for cattle. That's just also very, very shallow root system, vegetation, and doesn't have much cover. Well, it doesn't have much cover in the surface, especially after grazing. And then you have this bare soil. By the 30s, some soil deterioration had already shown on maps on the soil types. You see this big area there has sort of became bare soil. There was no coverage, no grass cover, no coverage there, just bare soil. And the majority of the the north and the part of the south and Great Plains were all the dryland cropland there. So it's quite some change. The big areas got changed. And now today is this mosaic stuff is mixed, this irrigated crop fields and soybeans and other things. So we focus on what this change in land cover may have altered the circulation in the Great Plains and result in this, or at least I believe is a result after some conditions set up this, not quite a result, not just originating from, not initiate, but it's supporting this initiation, also most importantly enhancing that and prolong that dry condition for multiple years. So that's what we're going to test next. So the test, well, this is another sort of more quantitative description of how change of land cover in the Great Plains from the pre-settlement, 1850, 1880, to the Dust Bowl era, 35 to 33, 35, 38, to the present, 2011. That's 2 years before that data published. So you can see these numbers. In pre-settlement, there's no crops. And at the Dust Bowl time, you have 30% of land, the percentage of land coverage by crop, and the grassland lost these many percentages. So we're going to see how we're going to use a method to see how we can measure the effect of such land cover change on the circulation and on precipitation. So we have this, well, you also need some kind of modeling system to do this kind of testing. The model is just a set of equations, fluid mechanics, and then you put them into code, and you run those model codes with the initial conditions, boundary conditions. And then in this case, the boundary condition, the lower boundary of the model is the land condition. So we run the model with the pre-settlement land cover condition. That's this one. And then we run the model with the 1930s land cover condition with the same large scale forcing. Large scale forcing here means with the same, say, SST anomalies or SSC conditions on both sides of the continent. So we have this derived or retrieved condition of the SST over the that was questionable, because back then the records were very rare, were very scarce. It's not continuous. So in order to overcome that problem of inaccurate measurement of SST in early years, like pre-settlement, nobody was here. A few people were here. We use the same condition, circulation condition. The idea is that, okay, if we use the same circulation condition, then we change this everything is the same. The only difference is the land cover condition. So we use one experiment for using this land cover, and the other one uses this land cover, and the other one uses the present land cover condition. We run this model for, say, 10 years, 20 years, 40, 50 years, to see how the model produce precipitation compares. Like, okay, if the model produce the precipitation with this land cover more than this land cover, or other way around, and we do that. And also, in order to be more convincing, we use different forcing conditions. Like we use, okay, we have global circulation models. We run global circulation models with specific SST anomalies. Like here in the Equatorial Pacific, over there in North Atlantic, we use those set up SST anomalies for, say, El Nino case or La Nina case, or the warm phase or cold phase of the North Atlantic oscillation. We have those large-scale circulation conditions. We run the same set of experiments with different set of large-scale circulation forcing. If they all produce the same kind of similar results, for example, this land cover condition yields the least precipitation, summer precipitation, then we can say, well, at least the result would be would it be reasonable to say that the land cover is a cause for this deficit in precipitation? Because this result appears in every forcing condition we considered. So that's the idea of this this study, this plan. So here is the result of those experiments. You can see that, well, this is using the present day circulation condition. I have results, we have results using different sets of large scale circulation conditions. They yield very much similar results like shown here. In this case, we run the model from 1995 through 2002, and these are the May, July, summer season, growing season precipitation for the U.S. Great Plains. Average over there, you can see that well, there are interannual variations. Like some years are dry, some years are wet, but regardless, you see that using 1930s land cover condition, the model produced the least amount of precipitation among all the three land cover conditions. And the present day precipitation, present day land cover condition produced the most precipitation. Why is that? That's the next question we're going to answer later. Well, that's next, but we'll talk about that later. So this result is, well, this and other results similar to this using different large-scale forcing conditions sort of support the notion that the land cover change in the 30s was a result of the agricultural expansion there is a cause, at least is as a cause for the dryness in the Great Plains, So then, what is causing this dryness? Well, what is causing this dryness? It's just this reduction of precipitation. Well, this is like a back to the old stuff, like, oh, hey, local and regional circulation, regional land cover change can cause the reduction of precipitation. But how that happen? How could land cover change how could that affect the cause, yield that result, yield this minimize or least amount of precipitation during the growing season? So then the idea, that the explanation we provide is this, is summarized by these four panels there. When you have well, first of all, these panels are showing the difference between 1930s and the present day conditions of these variables, albedo. And then this is a net radiation at the surface. And this is the vertical motion in the at these any points there. And this is the zonal pressure gradient force. I'm going to explain these parameters next. You just know that these are albedo difference, the net radiation at surface difference, and this vertical motion difference, and the pressure gradient difference. Horizontal is a horizontal zonal. Zonal means going from say either west, east, or east west. Let's see what is albedo change tell us. What does that tell us? You see the 1930s and present day difference in albedo is all positive. What do you mean by positive albedo? Meaning, if you remove the native grass, or the land becomes bare, land becomes crop, those things, the crop or the bare land has much higher albedo than the grassland. Albedo is a measuring the reflectivity of the surface of any surface. It's a fraction of the reflected amount of radiation divided by the total incoming radiation. So if you have larger albedo, that means more reflection, less absorption. If you have the albedo equals 30%, meaning 30% of incoming radiation, solar radiation, is being reflected. Only 70% is left there for either absorption or doing something else, mostly absorption. So you have 50%, that'll be half the radiation is gone. Well, that means the surface is in deficit of energy if higher albedo. In this case, the 1930s land cover is favoring higher albedo because you see these colors are mostly yellow in this positive range there. So that means when you remove native grass, your surface albedo is going to increase. You have less radiation available for absorption at the surface. So that is what it's saying in this result. And then, well, this is a direct explanation to what I just described. These are mostly blue colors negative. This is saying you have net decrease of net radiation at the surface after the land condition changed from native grass to 1930s bare soil. Okay, then here is the vertical motion. Well, when you have less energy at the surface, the atmosphere receives less energy because atmosphere gains its energy primarily from the surface, from long-wave radiation. So when the surface is cool, it doesn't provide much long-wave radiation to warm the surface, warm the atmosphere. So when the atmosphere is not warm enough, not gaining enough energy to warm itself, it will generate its own warmth to sustain this profile. Otherwise, the atmosphere would collapse, I guess, in a thin layer. So to do that, the atmosphere will sink because sinking motion is a process that air goes from lower pressure at a higher elevation to higher pressure at lower elevation. And in this process, the atmosphere gains energy because it's squeezed by environment. So from low pressure is this volume to high pressure is this little volume. So it is squeezed by the work done by the environment to add energy to the air, sinking there. So the atmosphere has to sink in order to maintain its thermal status. And that is shown here. You have mostly downward motion. This vertical motion is downward. The atmosphere is sinking. So when the atmosphere is sinking, you probably know sinking air does not have the mechanism, does not support cloud, does not support precipitation. You need rising motion to support precipitation, support condensation. So that is one way to reduce precipitation. You have always sinking motion. You have no cloud. You have clear sky every day. Nothing can be generated. No rain can be formed. Can form in that case. So you have little precipitation. You have reduced amount of precipitation all the time. The more important thing that the Great Plains receives its moisture for precipitation primarily from you hear this jet, southerly low-level jet. The jet is from Gulf of Mexico to these plains, especially during the warm season. You hear this nightly nocturnal thunderstorms. Where do those nocturnal thunderstorms come from? Especially nighttime when the surface is cooling. So it's primarily due to the moisture from the Gulf of Mexico to this region, bring moist, high energy air to this place and then cause this nocturnal thunderstorm. So that's 80% of moisture required by precipitation in this region is from the low-level jet. This jet flow is like a low-level atmospheric river or something to this place. So when you have then this sinking motion here, you increase the pressure there because air is subsiding down to add more weight on this area. So pressure is increasing. And that increase in your local pressure or regional pressure here is going to reduce the mechanism or the force that sustains that southerly low-level jet. So that is shown here. This is a pressure gradient force, which is the force drives this southerly low-level jet, which transports moisture to the Great Plains. And this here is you see all these dashed line, which showing the weakening of the pressure gradient force. That is saying that 80% of the moisture transported to the Great Plains was in jeopardy, was not able to be sustained at the situation when you have the land cover changed from the grassland to the bare soil condition. So this is a mechanism explaining why this change of land cover condition can sustain this dry condition for quite some time. This is a result showing the reduction of the water flux. This is water flux of the low-level jet during those May, July months. Say all these red colors are in the negative. So the weakening of the low-level jet, weakening the meridional moisture flux. Meridional means from south to north, the flux, water flux. And these reductions of water flux, which is essential for precipitation in the Great Plains summer season, was a result of the change of the land cover from the native vegetation to the cropland thing. So these are all showing this mechanism explaining what happened if you change the condition, the land cover condition from the native grassland to the cropland, and how that would have done to your environmental conditions, to your circulation conditions, and favoring and then the outcome is favoring this dry condition. And that dryness can sustain dryness with like the compounding effect can cause this massive Dust Bowl drought as observed in the 1930s. And this is a panel showing that also showing the difference using the 1930s situation. This is a precipitation difference using the 30s condition and the present day condition. So you see that 30s, these are all negative things, meaning the present day precipitation is much bigger than the 1930s. And this is 1930s and pre-settlement. It's also very large areas of precipitation deficit in the Great Plains during the 30s. So 30s, the change of the land cover condition during the agricultural exploration, the agricultural expansion before the 30s, from the pre-settlement to the 1920s, really changed the condition and made it to be favorable for that. And the same condition happened also, as I said, in the mid-50s, although the severity was not as strong as this, but it was still significant and caused some substantial damages to the local community and the society in this region. And then, so those are the story and also the theory, a mechanism explaining this cause for sustaining and also intensifying the drought. But there is a question: what is initiating that? What is the drought? Where did it come from? Well, it was somehow. You don't need some big stuff. You just in this case, you just need somehow a trivial, just a minor condition, enough to cause a drought, initiate a drought. But then the drought can be magnified many folds by the condition, the land surface condition. So this is saying, give me a condition favoring a drought. I'm going to magnify that tenfold to this dust bowl condition. So that's what we found. So the concluding remarks is you hear this words the phrase in rain follows plow, rain doesn't follow plow. Rain is, plow is going to change the condition, is going to devastate the people who plow the ground. So it's just the best thing is just to consider as conservation. So this is Conservation Nebraska, right? Promote conservation and create a condition in which human and nature can live in a coherent way. Yeah. So that's the story of this talk. I thank you for your attention to this. I'm glad to hear any questions if you have. Thank you.
There is one question from the people online. We said, we understand contributing to greater solar absorption of that. How and why and when was this ag approach finally halted? For the pioneer colonial settlers in the mid-1800s were persuaded that rain follows the cloud. So broke soil abandoned. We understand contributing to greater solar absorption, no doubt. How, why, and when was this ag approach finally?
By the way, how do you stop it? When stop? Yeah, that's a good question because you have a start, you have a process, but then how how was this process stop sometime? Why stop? Well, that is a good question. To stop this process, you need a bigger, larger forcing. That must be from the large scale circulation. So you think this region, the Great Plains, had this prolonged drought for many years. It devastated people, local people, but it also changed the configuration of the large scale circulation. And that circulation had its own sort of mind or its own things to do. It won't allow this thing to last forever. So that is a natural process. You think if you have let me think, you have say a basketball court, you have one player doing some funny things. You can only do certain times or certain period. Oh yeah, do other things for a period of time. Then the rest will be unhappy or something with him, with his behavior, whatever will. Then that person will be sort of well, sort of put away or something like that. Then this game will continue. So it's something similar to this. This land use change is just intensified and prolonged this drought for a period of time. Eventually, it's gone. It's hauled by what? By the large scale circulation. So you have this, for example, you don't have the southerly flow to transport moisture from the Gulf of Mexico to this region for those many years. Then where did the moisture go there? It will accumulate, it will be accumulated there, or going other ways, and that disturbance in moisture transport will change the circulation around this region, and eventually it will overcome this because this is only a regional scale problem, regional scale anomaly. It will overcome this anomaly and smooth out this difference or this deviation, and then continue with the regular circulation pattern. You have this annual cycle, you have this wet and dry alternations. Yeah, so but that's a very nice question. Very thoughtful question. That's pretty good. Yeah. But the thing is that this is just one process that we believe help intensify, prolong this drought and cause those massive dust storms. But then it can only last so long. It won't be able to hold forever, because it is still a small scale thing, regional scale thing in this big global or hemispheric circulation. So the circulation eventually, the moisture accumulated over there will eventually come back to overcome this anomaly, even stubborn anomaly, and then erase this anomaly and then go back to normal. Yeah, so that's my understanding, my explanation. And that's a good question.
One online says, you got resilience for Nebraska agricultural landscape with climate change predictions?
Well, that's what I'm supposed to give another talk. That's in 2 months or something. Yeah, that's the next. That's what I'm going to talk about next time. Well, that's a very good question, but also the answer to that is a very sensitive to what the current plan for irrigation. The current condition is, as I showed earlier, with the present day land cover, we had the experiment showed we have the largest amount of precipitation summer season. That is, we showed primarily from irrigation. So if irrigation is going to be either reduced or terminated, that will be putting us in a very similar situation as the 1930s. So we are in this crossroad, whether preserving the groundwater is important, is an eminent task we need to do. But in the meantime, we have to produce. Then how to balance this demand, these different conflict of demands, and more important is if we reduce the irrigation, how much reduction can be done in order to sustain the current situation. So those are the policymakers and also scientific. Policymakers should always consider scientific suggestions, scientific suggestions. What about how policies will affect the environment, will affect the people's life and economy in this place. So that's for now, we are safe. Well, as long as the irrigation is on, we'll be fine. But when the irrigation is going to be turned off, then that will be a different. We may face something similar to that. So that's my understanding. All right. All right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.